number of times we come across customers who go, we're planning to throw away our org and start from scratch. Like, that doesn't surprise me anymore. And I mean, I don't have data for that, but it almost feels anecdotally that it's about 5 to 7 years for a Salesforce org to go through the life cycle of being used, being over-configured. Let's start from scratch. 30 to 50% of stuff you build that never gets used, that catches up to the orgs that we built. What I want to talk about is, or officially announce an initiative I'm spearheading, which is the Change Intelligence report series. So as Ian said, these days we do about more than 50,000 Salesforce scans a month, and that was actually January numbers. We've analyzed 1 billion, 370 million, et cetera, metadata components in January. And at some point, we realized we have all this data stored in very neatly designed collections. Thank you, Rick. Which means we can run some really nice queries and start aggregating the data. So the plan is to, over the course of this year, publish a report on a specific area of Salesforce org. Pretty much aggregate data across many orgs and look at state of automations, the architecture of object, of order of executions, permission complexity, and really understand how things are. At TDX, Dreamforce, lots of other events, we spend a lot of time talking about how things should be, but no one, other than through anecdotal evidence, our own experiences, can really say how things actually are in the industry. And this is what we're trying to do this year. Provide this data, team up with some of the thought leaders in the industry to then comment on the data and suggest a path forward. We've analyzed 21,900 page layouts of memory serves and more than 16,000 record lightning pages to understand, how they're configured, how they're utilized. And we actually partner up with Steffi Hogan, who's the director of user experience design at Red Argyle, and is very vocal on designing good user experience in Salesforce to help us understand that data. It was interesting. We started with a question to Steffi, like, what is the ideal number of fields users should see on a page? And I was actually quite surprised, because I'm not a user experience expert myself, that apparently the answer is 7, which obviously probably, just like, it made me sweat, because that's definitely not how many fields we've got on our page layouts or lightning pages. But there is apparently a lot of research from not just Salesforce, but actually across the industry, that anything more than 7, let's say, let's be generous, let's say a dozen, and cognitive overload and time to make a decision. I think the Hicks law, the more choice you've got, the longer it takes for you to do anything, or it all starts kicking in. Okay, so 7 is what we're aiming for. We asked ourselves, so how many fields are there on page layouts on average? And on average, you've got about more than 35 fields on a page layout, which doesn't seem that bad. But it's on the standard objects where things actually get really ugly in a hurry. On average, it's 78 or nearly 79 fields on average on a page layout on standard objects. As a reminder, this is more or less where it should be, apparently, to make the user experience really, really good for people using it. We looked at average for individual standard objects, because obviously custom objects are different in every org. Poor salespeople. I finally feel sorry for the team, Jim. On average, an opportunity page layout has 154 fields on page layouts. And on accounts and contacts, it's pretty much close to 100. And that's not in this presentation, but we also looked at general distribution. 1 in 5 page layouts on standard objects have more than 100 fields. So there are a lot of difficult to use pages out there, to put it bluntly. A couple of years ago, obviously, so that was, I think, 2020, when dynamic forms were first launched, and the last pretty much 9 to 12 Salesforce releases, they've been adding the dynamic forms to more and more objects, custom and then very standard objects. And if you actually use dynamic forms and dynamic behavior, that's super powerful modern way to build great user experience, right? Because you can make it conditional, you can make it rule-based, you can make sure that the right information is shown at the right time, depending on the status or some other attribute, stuff that wasn't available through page layouts. I mean, in some sense, these numbers shouldn't be surprising, and in some ways, they feel very low to me because the page layouts I usually see for some of our customers are into many, many hundreds. Number of customers we have who have maxed out on number of fields that they have on objects, period, that are on every page layout. That's kind of the world I live in. So I was actually surprised that the averages are lower than that, but it's still bad. But not surprising because, again, page layouts were not designed to offer such a great user experience. So then we looked at how are Lightning pages or the dynamic forms on Lightning pages actually being utilized. And it turns out this is still, a sort of capability or technology that is not seeing the level of adoption you would expect after so many years of Salesforce really pushing it. Only about just over 17% of dynamic Lightning pages actually use dynamic form behavior at all. Only about 10% use any sort of field-based filter. Only about 8% or 9% use any role, profile, pick list value, that kind of, let's say, more sophisticated filtering mechanism. So there's still a long way to go to make the state of, let's say, Salesforce user experience really, really modern. There are more insights in that report. You can scan if you want. I'll just move very quickly to download the full report from our site. There are more insights there, more granular findings. More importantly, again, this was the first report. There are actually more reports already in the works. So again, user experience is the one we published. Fundamentally, we were aiming by the end of February. By the end of March, we're hoping to do one on the level of adoption, or in other words, also waste on Salesforce orgs, how much stuff that we built actually ends up having an impact or being used. And also access management or complexity of our permission model fundamentally shed some light on how complex is the configuration of profiles and permission sets and access controls across Salesforce orgs. Let me offer two insights from the two other reports we're building as a sort of sneak peek. One was we asked ourselves, we didn't want to understand necessarily how much of the stuff in Salesforce is and isn't being used generally. We actually thought we want to look at much more shorter time span. So we went, let's find all the custom objects and all the custom fields built between 1st of January 23 and 1st of January 24. Let's exclude managed package stuff. So like anything that you install into your org, we want to really see the stuff that someone had to configure, build, maybe have a couple of meetings about to figure out the details, send some emails back and forth or Slacks to figure out what exactly should be there. So, stuff that we had to put some effort into. Installing a managed package with 500, let's say 30 objects, 500 fields, that takes a click of a button. So that's easy to do and get wrong, but and not use, and you can uninstall relatively easily unless you've built something on top of it. How about the stuff that we actually spent building? About a third of all custom objects built on platform never got used in the sample of those customers. More surprisingly, 45% of custom fields they built never got used. Could you just, you like always saying that most stakeholder requests start, could you just add this field? It's so simple and I really need it. Well, turns out most of the time you do not. I've been showing this chart around for the last 2 weeks at various meetings and events, and I get one of two reactions. There are a lot of people who go, yeah, that's expected, that's just Salesforce for you. That's business as usual, completely unfazed. And then you have other people who are not necessarily surprised by those numbers. They go like, I kind of suspected it's somewhere, maybe it's a bit higher, or maybe it's a bit lower, but seeing the number strikes a chord and actually makes me sad. And I think that's the right reaction. We have a lot of customers who come to us and sometimes ask, can we, for instance, build something like that in our product, because they are tired, emotionally exhausted of kind of constantly being the passive order takers. They kind of want to fight back. They want to go, you haven't used the last 4 toys we built you, you're not getting a 5th one. Or you know, help us fight back to gain some ownership or agency over the orgs. So if you feel like that, if you feel like, yeah, that's, you know, that these numbers shouldn't be that high and we don't want our org to be like that, I think you're in the right place.